Hey everyone, Jesse here. Wanted to do a video on elderberry. Overall, the growth of elderberry. So this elderberry plant, you can try and get away from it. It's at 52 inches or so right now. I took a measurement 14 days ago, and it was out about 25 inches, just about that. So on average, this elderberry plant has been growing about 1.7 inches per day. Overall, it should get about 6 to 8 feet tall. This is a wild elderberry. They usually have black or blue berries. This new growth, this is all this year. So down here in Texas, you know, it's growing starting in January, February. It gets warm enough, and then it starts accelerating quite a bit. The growth from last year is where you'll see the flowers growing, new growth coming off of it, and things like that. But you can tell the difference between the two. This is the previous year's growth. So I would generally have elderberry that's 2 years. So you have this new shoot that is coming up from the middle. That's going to grow 8 feet. And then you have the shoots from last year, which are actually, you know, they're getting pretty, they're woody looking, stiffer, all that stuff. And that's what's going to produce the flowers and then the berries. The second year growth is, I can take cuttings off of that over the winter, which I've done for a few items. You can see that this one is cut, and they will root pretty easily as well. So second year growth, I'll do cuttings, make new plants. I can make as many elderberry plants as I want, basically. This plant alone I've already gotten probably 10 or so plants just last year, and it was not very established. So I have some of those right here, right there. So these are newer elderberry plants. You can tell the difference. And then once they're established, they just start growing like gangbusters. I wouldn't say that they take over the yard because they can be pruned really easily. And then you can make cuttings and cuttings and cuttings from them over and over. Here's another woody growth with that. And then this is an offshoot from that. I think the roots this is kind of elevated, this ground. So it slopes down towards this plant, and then it's created a new growth from those roots from the base plant. So yeah, so I'd expect that this will probably grow for another month or so. At that point, it'll start topping out and then expanding on a width-wise. Let me go ahead and show some of the elderberry cuttings that I have completed from the aquaponics system, which is kind of my primary resource of propagating plants. So here's a completed cutting. So like I said before, this is the woody growth. So I took this cutting a couple weeks back. You can see some new growth already on this cutting. And basically these are placed in clay balls. I think they're called hydrotone. So this is the aquaponics system. There are fish. There's a catfish and a couple other bluegills in the base of this stock tank. This stock tank will pump water into this bed, which is primarily filled with either lava rock or the hydrotone pebbles for where I put the cuttings in. And so every 5 minutes or so, it floods this bed right to about the top of these clay clay balls. And the effect on cuttings is that they root really easily. Right now these are mulberry, and so after a few weeks I remove the cuttings from the aquaponics system, and then I will place them in potting soil and keep them pretty protected just outside. So they're warm, they're watered really well, they're out of direct sun, and then within a couple weeks being in potted soil, either sell these or plant them in the ground. So that's the overall process of making new elderberries, and you can see that these are pretty small. So just based on probably 6-inch cuttings or so, you can get new elderberry plants over and over and over, and exponential growth. And by the time you have a couple plants established, you can produce and sell as many cuttings as you could possibly imagine each year, and you won't have any problems doing so. Depending on the area, you might sell some off Craigslist or Etsy, things like that. I've seen people sell cuttings. So this is a mulberry. I'm planning to do the same thing, but someone just sold me cuttings from their elderberry plant, and I just stuck those sticks right into the aquaponics system. And this one in particular already has, 4 inches of growth. I will probably let it grow pretty well and then transfer it to soil, but then do the same process as this. So with that, that's an overview of elderberries, how they grow, what type of year produces which type of stick. Either it's hardened off and you can put it in an aquaponics system to propagate. If it's greener, then it's just a little more sensitive to all the elements, and it's harder to propagate unless you have like a misting setup, which I do. But this is pretty foolproof if you use the wooden cuttings. Thanks for watching.